Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Kinetx Poseidon 1000M. This watch is available from Kinetx.us for $1,149 which is €1,087. Kinetx are a micro brand based in America and their watches are Swiss made. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this black watch box which is vinyl coated and it has black stitching around the perimeter, hinge lid, and the interior is fully upholstered with a white velour fabric, and the watch sits in the base on a padded pillow cushion which is also white velour fabric upholstered. Now this is a disappointment because we are looking at a mid-tier piece costing €1,087, and this watch box does not say to me luxury, it doesn't say mid-tier, it doesn't say Swiss made. This is the kind of basic vinyl coated watch box one would expect with a low-tier piece costing below €500. At €1,087, micro brands at this price point are using genuine leather travel cases, travel rolls, alternatively solid wooden watch boxes, which do give the impression of quality, Swiss made and mid-tier. So I would like to see Kinetx improve upon this and upgrade the vinyl coated watch boxes they're using to either a genuine leather travel case or alternatively a solid wooden watch box, because there is room for improvement with it, but it is acceptable. With regards to the items you get with the watch, it comes with this plastic card which has a hologram on it, and this certifies that this is a genuine Kinetx piece and it's also Swiss made. On the reverse it has a QR code which you can scan with your Android or iPhone to get more information about Kinetx. It has the website Kinetx.us and also the email address to contact Kinetx. You also get two leaflets. One is an owner's instruction manual. It's translated into multiple foreign languages, including English, and the other one is a movement-specific owner's instruction leaflet, and this details the operation of the movement use, which is the Solita caliber SW200-1 automatic. And lastly, one also gets this tag, which has the Swiss flag, and on the reverse in gilt, it has Swiss made, and this certifies that the Kinetx Poseidon 1000M is indeed a Swiss made piece. So with regards to the dimensions, we have a 45mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 52.6mm, a thickness of 15.7mm, and a lug width of 22mm. The oyster style bracelet tapers from 22mm at the lugs down to 20mm at the flip lock clasp, and as you can see, the flip lock clasp is signed to a good standard with high definition engraving. We've got the Kinetx logo engraved. Nice heavy gauge to the 316L grade stainless steel, brush satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks, and also brush satin finish to the bevel. And I like the gauge of it, it's heavy, it's solid, and it's clearly going to last for a good length of time. But however, I'm going to be critical of it only having 3 holes in the flanks, because 3 micro adjustment holes really is the minimum. I would like to see an additional 1 or 2 holes drilled in the flanks to give 4 or 5 micro adjustments, because that would better allow for fine-tuning the fit of the bracelet. But on a positive note, I want to give credit to Kinetx because they have included a half link either side of the clasp, because often it's the case with oyster style bracelets, adding or subtracting a full link from the oyster style bracelet doesn't suffice. It's either too tight or too loose, and by having a half link either side of the clasp one can get a better fit. But I still think with the absence of a micro adjustment mechanism, we really need to see 4 or 5 micro adjustments in the clasp. So an additional 2 holes drilled in the flanks, that isn't going to significantly increase production costs, but it will enhance the fit. So we've got a double dome sapphire crystal with blue tinted AR coating on the underside, and the blue tinted AR coating does a good job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished handset. The handset is correctly proportioned, and the applied indices and also the printed indices on the dial are very good. The legibility is good in daylight conditions. The matte black dial contrasts very well with the white Kinetx and also automatic, and also the text on the dial, Poseidon 1000M and Swiss made. So quality of the printing is high definition, it's sharp and crisp, and the font used is clearly legible. Now, with regards to the crystal, it's 4.5mm thick, which is necessary because this is a 1000 meter water resistant piece. So to put that into perspective, typically a 300 meter water resistant dive piece would have a 2mm thick sapphire crystal, but this is 4.5 millimeters, so it is an incredibly thick sapphire crystal, but that is necessary because a 2mm or 3mm sapphire crystal would crack under 100 meters of pressure. So this provides an effective hermetic seal to 1000 meters, which is very strong specification. In the left-hand flank of the case, we also have a helium escape valve, and this is typically seen on dive pieces with 500 meter plus water resistance. So this is a credible dive piece tool watch used for professional divers. It can withstand 100 meters, it's water resistant to that pressure, and the helium escape valve is a good addition to the left-hand flank. It's very well executed because it's recessed into the flank of the case. Longitudinal brush satin finishing is done to a good standard. It's a nice fine grained finish to it. No sharp edges to the undercut to the case, and no sharp tips to the corners. And also the top edge transition between the tops of the lugs and the flanks is done very well. It's a sharp, crisp line, but it's not sharp. So it's very well deburred and chamfered. Male end links, which are solid and a good tight fit to the head of the case. Now, with regards to the bracelet, the 316L grade stainless steel does have a beautiful luster to it, but however, I'm going to be critical of the bracelet because it rattles. It uses push pins rather than screw pins, which is a disappointment. At the €1,000 plus price point in the mid-tier, screw pins are the industry standard. It is unacceptable to use push pins at this price point. We're not looking at a low-tier piece below €500. We're looking at a mid-tier piece at €1,087. Screw pins are therefore mandatory. Now, the problem is, each of the links has longitudinal play, lateral side-to-side play, and also up and down play. So in every direction, each of the push pins in the bracelet links have additional play. Now, the cumulative effect of all the links having play in the push pins is, as you can see, it's a sloppy bracelet and it rattles. Now, if you look at the end link in the bracelet, where the male end link fits in the head of the piece, you can see there's also significant lateral side to side, up and down, and longitudinal play. So we've got significant play in every direction. So the end link rattles, not the end link itself fitted into the head of the piece. I'm referring to the two outer links in the end of the oyster style bracelet that fit to the spring bar, and the spring bar goes through the midsection of the end link in the head of the piece. But you can see, look closely, and you can see we've got significant play. And this is all the way through the bracelet. Now I'm just going to check the other side for continuity. We have the same problem. It's really a case that the hole drilled in the male end link is too big for the pin in the end of the bracelet, and the problem is you have longitudinal, lateral and up and down play in every direction, and in all of the links we also have the holes are, the tolerance is not good enough. The holes are too large, and the problem is the push pins have slack, as you can see. And it's significant, and the problem is over the length of the bracelet, the cumulative effect is we get rattle on both sides of the bracelet. So I'd like to see Kinetx upgrade the push pins and use screw pins. 1.6mm screw pins are the industry standard, and that would tighten up the tolerances and the quality control, because it is disappointing on a mid-tier piece costing €1,087 to have this kind of rattle on the bracelet. But on a positive note, it does articulate smoothly, no stiff links and no sharp edges to the flanks. The brush satin finishing to the flanks is done to a good standard. It doesn't pull arm hair, and the top side and underside are finished to a good standard with regards to the brush satin finishing. It's got a nice luster to it. So I'll show you the interior of the 2-button push flip lock. As you can see, solid mill 316L grade stainless steel clasp, as one would expect. Beautiful luster to the brush satin finishing. The hinge pins are acceptable, but we do have some play in the centre pin and also the pin going into the body of the clasp. As you can see, it wobbles slightly, and the centre hinge pin also has some play in it, and the left hand pin also has some play in it. And again, so we've got 3 hinge pins. The tolerances need to be tightened up because we're not looking at a low tier piece. As I've stated, this is a mid tier piece costing $1,087. The tolerances of the hinge pins need to be tight. They need to be correct at this price point. One cannot be magnanimous about shortcomings with quality control or tolerances at the mid tier price point of $1,087. So I'll show you the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back. It's a bubble back profile and it has holes drilled in it rather than milled slots. The holes drilled are good, they're deburred to a good standard, no sharp edges to the holes. And we've got Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea, with the trident spear, and that works very well because the watch is called the Poseidon 1000M, so it fits that we have Poseidon engraved in the back, and it's laser etched to a good standard, so no sharp edges, no burrs to it, and the bubble back profile is relatively low profile, bearing in mind it has to be thick to provide an effective hermetic seal to 1000M. It is a very high specification. Solid end links are a good tight fit to the case, they're well finished, no sharp edges, no burrs, and we've got quick release spring bars, which is very good. So in order to exchange the bracelet for a rubber strap, you don't need a spring bar tool because of the quick release spring bar, so it's good to see that used. The quality of the finishing to the underside to the head of the piece is good, no sharp edges to the undercut or the flanks. It's been deburred and chamfered very well, so it does feel very comfortable against the wrist, and the laser etching is good quality, it's high definition, you can clearly see Poseidon with the trident spear and also the specification laser etched around the circumference, so it's a good quality solid stainless steel case back. So let's test the 120 click unidirectional bezel execution. So ceramic bezel insert, as you can see, nice glossy finish to it. The font is stencil font and we've got 15-minute ticks. Let's test the execution of it. Gear tooth profile to the stainless steel bezel. The 120 clicks feel medium firm resistance. They feel even all the way through the 360 degrees, which is good. The bezel doesn't get tighter or looser. It feels even all the way through the rotation. No lateral side-to-side play whatsoever. No back play whatsoever, so it's a nice tight bezel execution. I like the loud audible clicks. Medium firm resistance, so it feels solid. One can feel the click spring engaging with the grooves in the underside to the stainless steel bezel, so I like the solid action and the heavy spring loaded action to the ratcheting mechanism. Let's just check the alignment. One more click. So the triangle and Lume pip perfectly aligns with the double indices at 12 o'clock and the 60-minute tick on the chapter ring. So good bezel execution, no lateral side-to-side play, no back play, perfect alignment. Kinetx have got this correct. So with regards to the crown, let's test the execution. Gear tooth profile to the solid 316L grade stainless crown, and the gear tooth profile to it matches the gear tooth profile to the bezel, so good continuity of design. It's sterile, we've got concentric CNC lathe tool machining to it, nice chamfer to it, doesn't have any sharp edges or burrs to the gear tooth profile. It is large and it is necessary to have a large crown in order to house the thick rubber gaskets to provide an effective hermetic seal to 1000 meters. Bear in mind, this isn't a 300 meter water resistant piece, it's 1000 meters, so therefore it needs a large crown to house thick rubber O-ring gaskets to provide that hermetic seal. So let's test unscrewing it. It feels smooth, but there is some friction. Now I want to clarify, the friction isn't a defect with regards to the interface of the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. The friction is caused by the thick rubber O-ring gaskets. There's a rubber O-ring gasket inside the crown and then two rubber O-ring gaskets inside the stainless steel crown tube, and it's necessary to have three of those hermetic seals in order to provide 1000 meters of water resistance. So it is acceptable to have that friction. The threading is smooth. The stainless steel to stainless steel feels smooth. It's not silky smooth because we have the friction of the rubber gaskets which compress when you screw it down fully, and that reinstates the hermetic seal, so it is good quality. So Sellita SW200-1 automatic. So when it's unscrewed, we're in the manual wind position. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up. Feels nice and smooth to manually wind the caliber SW200-1. It's one of my favourite Swiss calibers. So I like the feeling of it, medium resistance to it, it manually winds very well. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication. If you look at the date window at 3 o'clock, you can see the quick set works very well. Nice light action to it, it clicks over to the next day of the week very smoothly. Nice light resistance to it, nice positive clicks. The indexing is very good on the SW200-1. Absolute pleasure to set the date. Pulling it out to the second click position on the crown is the time setting position. It hacks the movements. And if you look at the second hand, you can see it has now hacked. So it's possible to set the time precisely to the second. Foam resistance to the SW200-1, it feels the same as the ETA 2824-2, which it is a clone of. The only difference between the architecture of the two movements is the SW200-1 has 26 joules and the ETA 2824-2, which is based upon, has 25 joules, but with the exception of the additional joule added, the architecture of both movements is identical. So it feels very good. I like the medium foam resistance to the gearing, minimal back play, and it feels very smooth. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. You can see the second hand begins to sweep around the dial with the characteristic 4 Hz sweep. So let's test screwing down the crown again. Feels very smooth. Immediate thread pickup, so there's a good interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. The threads pick up very quickly, so it's good. It does feel smooth, and one can feel the friction of the gaskets, but that's due to them compressing and the heavy hermetic seal. 1000 meters is strong. I would like to see Kinetx engrave or emboss a K for Kinetx on the crown, because the sterile crown does work well, but I think it would enhance the piece aesthetically if it had an embossed K or an engraved K rather than just leaving it sterile. But this is subjective. Some collectors might like the tool watch aesthetic of it just being sterile with the concentric CNC lathe tool machining to it. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and as you can see, just bear with me and I'll close the clasp. It has a very long bracelet, so this will clearly fit around a wetsuit with no difficulty. If you have a 9-inch wrist, this will fit. Plenty of links, and this will easily fit around even a very thick wetsuit. So it is clearly a tool watch which is made for professional divers. So it's good that they have included enough links to fit around a wetsuit, or if you are a collector with a very large wrist of over 8 inches, and I like that. Now, 22 to 20 is a rather thick bracelet, but it's necessary because this is an incredibly heavy head of the piece. It's one of the heaviest pieces I've reviewed on my channel. 245 grams of heft, nearly a quarter of a kilo on wrist. So 245 grams with all the links, but of course you're going to reduce that heft significantly if you remove 4 or 5 links, for example. That will bring it down to 220 to 230 grams of heft. But it is heavy, and one can feel it. It really is a very top heavy piece because 15.7 millimeters with the 4.5 millimeter thick double dome sapphire crystal, so it does sit tall on the wrist. This clearly is not a daily wear piece that's easily going to slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts, because 13 millimeters really is the optimum. At 15.7, it's 2.7 millimeters in excess of the 13 millimeter optimum dive piece size. It also has a long lug-to-lug measurement of 52.6, but bear in mind this is meant to fit around wetsuits, and of course on a wetsuit you're going to have a much thicker wrist, and therefore a longer lug-to-lug is beneficial, and the male end links work well rather than female pivoted end links. So bear in mind this is going to be worn around a wetsuit, and therefore one needs the long bracelet and also the long lug-to-lug measurement. But it is still a very large piece. 45 millimeters does give wrist presence, so straight away I'm going to say, if you are a collector with a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you can disregard this piece. It's too large and it's going to be too heavy to be comfortable, and the lug to lug is clearly too long at 52.6 for a 6 to 7 inch wrist. If you are a collector with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches, then yes, you'll find the 52.6 lug to lug to be acceptable, and you'll enjoy the wrist presence of a large 45 millimeter head of the piece. It's clearly a tool watch meant for professional divers. 1000 meters with a helium escape valve. This is not meant to be a daily wear piece. So as a tool watch, yes, it is necessary to have these kind of proportions, and of course it is 1000 meters. I personally would prefer if it had clear AR coating, because as you can see, when I tilt it at an oblique angle, the blue tinted AR coating does work well, but I dislike the blue tint. I think blue tinted AR coating works better with blue dial watches. This is a black dial watch. Clear AR coating improves the clarity because one gets that tint at the oblique angle, and that's largely due to the thickness, because It doesn't have a 2mm thick sapphire crystal, this is 4.5. So we've got that magnification effect. We've got very slight distortion at an oblique angle, and one can't avoid that due to the sheer thickness of the crystal. It's over double the thickness of a normal sapphire crystal on a 300 meter piece, 2mm. So this is 4.5. But clear AR coating would enhance the clarity. But if you enjoy large pieces, 45mm watches, you will enjoy the heft. I will say it is uncomfortable to wear for long periods of time. So you're not going to wear this for 8 to 12 hours per day, because at 245 grams, it does feel very heavy. But bear in mind, you could wear it on a rubber strap, and that would significantly reduce the heft. 22 down to 20 is a very wide bracelet, but I think they've made the correct decision, because a 20 to 16 or even a 20 to 18 taper wouldn't be enough. A bracelet would look undersized if it had a 20 to 16 taper. 22 to 20 is the correct proportion, because 45 is a very large head of the piece, as you can see. So tall and top heavy, comfortable to wear around a wetsuit for diving, but as a daily wear piece, too heavy to be comfortable. So something to bear in mind, 245 grams and 45mm is a very big piece. 4.5mm is a very thick sapphire crystal, but aesthetically pleasing if you like the tool watch aesthetic and if you want a heavy dive piece on wrist. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it uses two different types of superluminova. On the minute hand, which has an arrowhead tip, we have blue BGW9. The Lume pip in the ceramic bezel insert is also blue BGW9. But on the printed indices and the hour hand, we have green C3. Now, there's a slight colour tone mismatch between the hour hand and the printed indices. The hour hand is glowing brighter green, and that indicates to me that we've got 5 to 6 layers of C3 superluminova on the hour hand, but we've only got 3 to 4 layers on the printed indices. And if you look at the blue tone on the arrowhead minute hand, you can see it's clearly BGW9, and we're looking at 5 to 6 layers. It's glowing brighter than the printed indices. The Lume pip on the ceramic bezel insert is clearly 5 to 6 layers. It's glowing brightly as per the minute hand. So, good colour tone match between the Lume pip and also the minute hand. They're both a similar tone of blue, BGW9, but we've got a mismatch in the tone of green C3 on the printed indices and the hour hand and also the second hand. So I would like to see Kinetx improve upon the performance, because we have to remember this is not a low tier piece below €500. We're looking at a mid-tier piece which is over €1,000, and one cannot cut corners with regards to production costs at this price point. It is wholly unacceptable. You have to have 10 out of 10 performance on the BGW9 and the C3 superluminova. This is subjective, but I personally prefer dive pieces to have one colour of lume throughout, either BGW9 or C3 superluminova used on the Lume pip, the indices and also the handset. I don't like when brands use two different colours of lume, green and blue, but as I've stated, this is subjective. Some collectors don't mind a contrasting blue arrowhead minute hand and the hour hand and the second hand being green. I personally think it looks more aesthetically pleasing just to have one colour. But the performance of the indices is a disappointment, because as you can see, the indices are now beginning to fade quickly, but the Lume pip is still glowing brightly, the hour hand is still glowing brightly, so I think we're looking at 5 to 6 layers on the hands and the Lume pip, but only 3 to 4 layers of C3 on the indices. So really, I would like to see Kinetx improve upon the quality, printing more layers on the dial to enhance the exciter and therefore improve the quality of it, because it's fading fast on the dial. And I appreciate that it does have a 4.5mm sapphire crystal, so it is a very thick crystal, but even so, it needs to have very bright lume to penetrate through that 4.5mm of sapphire with blue tinted AR. This is another reason why I think clear AR coating would be beneficial, because the problem with blue tinted AR coating with a thick 4.5mm sapphire crystal is it does dull down the exciter in the lume. With a black dial, I think clear AR coating is better because it doesn't have that blue tint, and therefore the light shines through it more clearly and brighter. But as you can see, look at the indices now. They're beginning to fade to nothing very quickly, so this is unacceptable at this price point. It is a disappointment. Right, so let's discuss the movement use because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. You will all be familiar with the Sellita SW200-1 automatic, which is Swiss made. It has 26 joules. It runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is used for complications, and a quick set date complication, which I demonstrated. 38-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable, and the standard grade of SW200-1 has a stated accuracy of plus or minus 12 seconds to plus or minus 30 seconds per day. So a rather wide accuracy range, but however, I'm pleased to report that Kinetx are doing a good job of well regulating the caliber SW200-1 they're using. This one is running consistently at plus 6 seconds per day, which is excellent for an SW200-1. Plus 6 is well within the plus or minus 12 to plus or minus 30 seconds per day stated accuracy. So I think it's good enough. No negatives to the SW200-1 whatsoever. It's one of my personal favourite Swiss movements, and it is the correct choice for a mid-tier piece costing €1,087. The SW200-1 is a reliable, well-proven workhorse Swiss calibre. It feels good to manually wind, hand winding and hacking are good, and I like the 4 Hz sweep of the second hand sweeping around the dial smoothly. So the SW200-1 is a credible Swiss made movement for a Swiss made piece like this. So what do I think of it overall? Well, I consider this to be okay quality and okay value. I can't say it's good quality and good value, and I can't say it's excellent quality and excellent value because of the shortcomings. The play in the bracelet is the main disappointment. This really needs to be tightened up, and I think screw pins at this price point are mandatory. Push pins really are a cost-cutting measure. There's something else I want to show you, and this again is the reason why I'm not saying good quality and good value. I'm saying okay. The diver's extension link is pressed stainless steel. This is the kind of pressed stainless steel diver's extension link one would see on a low tier piece costing below €500, not on a mid tier piece costing in excess of 1,000. Bear in mind, this is 1,087 in the mid tier. I would expect to see a solid milled 316L grade stainless steel diver's extension, rather like a Rolex EasyLink style extension, not a pressed stainless steel extension like this. But on a positive note, it does snap in with a nice positive click, and it does deploy with a nice positive click. But it's a very light gauge of 316L grade stainless steel. It's very thin pressed metal. So solid milled diver's extension link is mandatory at this price point. In the mid-tier, you cannot have pressed diver's extension links. Really, this piece would be further enhanced if it had a ratcheting mechanism. We do see this at €500 to €600 on mid-tier price point pieces. At 1,000, a micro adjustment mechanism really has become mandatory rather than optional. So I think if they're not going to do that, Kinetx should definitely drill 2 more holes and have 4 or 5 micro adjustment holes in the flanks. 3 is just not enough. So these are the reasons why I say it's okay value and okay quality, but I can't say good or excellent because it has to have a solid milled extension link or a ratcheting micro adjustment mechanism to be excellent quality and excellent value. The other main negative, which I've detailed, is the quality of the C3 superluminova used on the printed indices. It needs to have 5 to 6 layers. It's wholly unacceptable at this price point to have weak performance of C3 or BGW9. Regardless of the lume used, it doesn't matter. It must have high performance. It must be 10 out of 10 with the exciter glowing very brightly for a good length of time. On a low tier piece, one can be magnanimous about it and say, well, it's below €500, there are some cost cutting measures, but on a €1,000 plus piece in the mid tier, the lume has to be 10 out of 10, and this just isn't that standard. So the lume needs to be improved, and also the quality control of the bracelets. The tolerances need to be tightened up, screw pins, and we also need to see an improvement on the clasp and extra micro adjustment holes. So I'd like to see refinement made, and therefore I could upgrade the OK quality and OK value to saying good or excellent. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Kinetx Poseidon 1000 meter. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.